Ladies and gentlemen, welcome at the very first Climate City Cup Award ceremony. Thank you very much for coming here, for joining us this morning, and for celebrating all the achievements. But before talking numbers, before talking about rankings and achievements, I would like to invite you to sit comfortably in your chairs and just have a look on those 6 past months we were working on the Climate City Cup. It's amazing because I could see many smiles on your faces, so I guess you recognize some of the events, maybe you've seen yourself on those memories. So that's what we went through during those 6 months. And here today we are with Stefan to open officially this ceremony.
Thank you very much, Fatime. Welcome to the Climate City Cup Award ceremony and Futuristic 2 Forum, which will be part in the afternoon. I guess the topic is very important one, and it's very timely, even though we have a few people that are still missing, but I guess that has something to do with some people had to go to the doctors, others took the tram in the wrong direction, but more and more people will come in to celebrate with us the achievements of the last few months. So the US just withdrew officially from the Paris Agreement a few weeks ago, and we heard from the Brown to Green report that no country among the G20 is actually on track to reach the 1.5 degree goal. Switzerland is on a good track, but we cannot sit back. We have to find new, innovative ways to tackle the issues that we face when it comes to sustainability. Sustainability in very broad terms. It can be sustainability in social terms, it can be sustainability in financial terms, but also environmental terms. And at ETH Computational Social Science, we restlessly push for new innovative solutions to help humanity become more sustainable. We have strong partners, very thankful to work with organizations like ICLEI or also UNFCCC, Open Geneva, and many others. We'll show this in a separate slide. Complexity Science up in Vienna helped us in the beginning with some events, and we got some generous support from Climate Kick. But most importantly, we need the support of the citizens. We need the support of the people that are not doing this professionally, but are actually the more motivated and passionate about helping with becoming more sustainable. We have a few people here today that were immensely active over the last few months, and we will talk to them a bit later during the day. But now I would like to give the word back to Fatime, and she will give us an introduction. What is the Climate City Cup about? Thank you, Fatime.
Thank you, Stefan. Exactly, so I guess if you're here, you're somehow related to the Climate City Cup project, but just briefly to remind what is it exactly about. So we are the citizen-based initiative through a friendly competition, but also collaboration. We would like to bring new solutions, open source solutions. We would like to create a space for knowledge sharing. We would like to foster innovation, collective intelligence. But at the same time, we don't want to bring anything new. There are already existing initiatives and projects working on sustainable development. So also the goal of the Climate City Cup is really to bring those different initiatives together. And all in all, we would like to empower citizens, to give them methods and tools to know how to assess the environment they live in. Regarding the cities that joined the Climate City Cup pilot project, there was more than 30 cities in different continents that you can see on the map. But the most active citizens were in the country like India, Germany, Switzerland, and Slovenia. But we have also participants from, for example, Hawaii or even Sri Lanka. So we were really represented in different areas in the world, and it's really good news for the first edition of the Climate City Cup. Going back to the roots, so just to remind, the project was initiated by two people who are here on the stage, Professor Dirk Halbing, who will give a talk about climate bottom-up actions, and Stefan Klauser, who is here with me on the stage. So for this first edition of the Climate City Cup, we decided to focus on 5 disciplines. So different cities, different individuals, they participated in 5 disciplines, mostly in the discipline of mobility and commuting. But we were also gathering different information related to flight compensations, to air quality, food waste management, and also energy consumptions. All those information, numbers, and rankings will follow afterwards during this ceremony. So I would like to invite on the stage Professor Halbing.
I think actually Fatime and Stefan really deserve a big applause.
In the meantime, we're setting up Professor Halbing here. Just a few remarks. You've seen our exhibition. The exhibition is really about you trying to imagine that there was Climate City Cups like there were Olympic Games in the past. So there's different times from 1953 to 1999, the present but also the future, and you can actually try out things. So there's a short description of what you can do. We also have the newest generation air quality measurement sensors here, and they were built by our friends of Octavis. And please make sure you try things, and it's going to be fun. And in the meantime, we have to get ready, so we'll start.
Almost ready.
Almost ready.
Yeah, see, I need to adjust this a little bit and then it should be perfect. Okay. Good. Here I am. So, the first time at City Cup, and I'd like to talk about participatory sustainability in action. Thank you all for being here. As you know, the biggest changes in world history always start silently, and many people don't see it coming, and hopefully this will be one of these things. So, we certainly have to solve our existential problems, and climate change is among these problems, but the main problem is lack of sustainability. We're just overusing, over-consuming the world's renewable resources, and on the long run, that's not going to end well if we don't do something about the way we're organizing our economy and society. And that's why the United Nations came up with those 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which we're supposed to meet by 2030, I mean in 11 years from now. It's almost impossible if we just rely on the classical pillars of change, which is global corporations on the one hand and nations on the other hand. So let's look into global corporations. We know about the upcoming sustainability crisis since the early 1970s, right? What has happened since then? Well, actually, transport has been extended worldwide to actually spend more and more energy resources and other resources. And while still back kind of early 80s, we were kind of sustainable on this planet, things really became worse since then. But now we are actually spending even more energy than before, rather than less, and not just worldwide, but also in the industrialized countries that should really have made progress since then. So it's no wonder that people like Greta Thunberg and Fridays for Future and Extinction Rebellions really get angry about what has happened in these 50 years. Also, nation states and the United Nations didn't really make the progress that we hoped for. There have been a lot of meetings to find a consensus, and the more people are involved in consensus formation, the longer it takes, and then in the end, it ends up with a lot of regulations and say one solution, supposedly the best one, will be implemented worldwide, but in the meantime we've lost 50 years of time in which we should have already acted, right? And then the outcome is there's a solution, it doesn't work, right? So then the question is, what will save us? What will save humanity? Will big data and artificial intelligence save the world? As you know, there is mass surveillance around this globe. You're already a walking sensor platform, said CIA Director Gus Hunt. It's really very nearly within our grasp to be able to compute on all human-generated information. And that includes most likely a lot of information that you're producing with your smartphone, for example, right? And we've seen this graph many times. So there are a lot of companies generating this data about us and the world, and it's being put together by the NSA and CIA and all sorts of secret services and so on. And they can see our personality, for example. It turns out we're being profiled. And in the end there will be something like predictive policing, but not restricted actually to crime, but to our entire life. We are being judged, in a sense that's kind of a digital judgment day, and then we're being judged according to our behavior, and apparently we're accused of misbehavior, and that should be corrected according to people, and that will happen, for example, the way China is doing it, with the social credit score, some people say citizen score, a system that one could really call technological totalitarianism, where everything you do and don't do will get plus or minus points, and that will determine about your life, your opportunities, your possibility to travel to other countries, to take the plane or even the fast train, to get certain kind of jobs, and even the speed of your internet. All of that depends on what you're doing. Now, of course, we have been reading about those education camps for more than 1 million Uyghurs, and we're very concerned about this digital dictatorship that has grown out there. But in the West, we shouldn't feel superior because, in a sense, there's also this paradigm of benevolent dictators, just that it's big IT companies that are trying to determine what our life should be like. And so, democracy as the framework of our society, with capitalism as kind of some subroutine to take care of prosperity and high quality of life, has basically turned into a system where now surveillance capitalism seems to be the framework and democracy seems to be the garnish. And the issue is that some people started to claim that democracy is an outdated technology, and even more so, some people claim democracy is the planet's biggest enemy. Really? Come on, I think some people have been getting things pretty wrong. We are now living in a highly networked world. And so the key word is complex systems. And these complex systems behave in a totally different way. It's true, yes, now we're living in a time of big data and we can make evidence-based decisions. But the point is, data volume is growing faster than processing power. It means there will be more and more dark data that we'll never be able to process and evaluate. And we need scientists to tell us what share of the data to be processed in what way. And even though we have more data than ever, data volume is doubling every year, amazingly. So in 1 year we are producing as much data as in all the previous years of human history. Systemic complexity is growing even faster because we're networking the world and combinatorial innovation sets in. And so even though we have the best technology and more data than ever, we're losing control of the world as we try to control in a top-down way. So we need to have a new paradigm, which is actually bottom-up coordination and self-organization. So, that's the old ways. Coming up with a lot of rules, over-regulation, while things could work this way. As you can see, this is a highly diverse system. There are no traffic lights and no policemen, and it's self-organizing very nicely and efficiently because the design is right. We have unidirectional traffic flow in the front and in the back and in between, a buffer that allows people to adjust the speed in such a way that there would be a gap in the traffic flow for you when you want to use it. That's all. Of course, we wouldn't be totally happy with this because accidents might happen, and so can we do that better with today's technology? And yes, with the Internet of Things, we can now make self-organization work 300 years after Adam Smith's Invisible Hand concept. And so the success principle is real-time measurement and real-time feedback. And not just of one quantity, but of many quantities, or multi-dimensional real-time feedback. And we have demonstrated the power of this approach with a self-organized traffic light control that produces green waves in a self-organized way. And not only this, it's actually saving time for everyone, for public transport, and for pedestrians and cyclists, and also motorized traffic. And you can imagine this is also better for the environment, right? But here we have reverted the control principle. Traffic light control is an NP-hard optimization problem, very complex optimization problem. So it cannot be solved in real time exactly. And what we're doing is we let the traffic flows control the traffic lights rather than the other way around, and in a very flexible way, and this is what creates those performance gains. A bottom-up self-control. You just have the right interactions. And in fact, in a world that is heading for sustainability crisis, we need, first of all, a resilient organization of society. And that requires diversity, decentralization, modular design, distributed control, subsidiarity. And it's clear that cities and regions are relevant organizational units for a resilient society. We shouldn't be doing all the same all over this planet. That wouldn't be sustainable and resilient at all. And that's why we have proposed to build digital democracy. You know, this idea of the benevolent dictator really doesn't work. Because suppose you had a super AI and would want to optimize it. Well, you need to choose a goal function. And there's no science that will tell you what is the right goal function. It was GDP per capita in the past. That's why we now have a sustainability crisis. Now, suppose you tell the super AI to make the planet sustainable, it might kill a lot of people. And so, as long as we focus really on one optimization goal, we'll forget about all the other goals, and that's why the system doesn't work. Instead, we need to build on collective intelligence. It turns out that when you have a complex problem to solve, then combining the best solution with, say, the second best and the third best will improve the solution. That's almost magic, right? But that's the success principle of collective intelligence. So if you have a complex problem, it's really important that you look upon it from different perspectives. And only by putting those different perspectives together, you will get a good picture. So, yeah, this entire thing is about learning to bring the best ideas of many minds together. And how can we do that? That brings us to pillar 3, because obviously pillar 1 and 2 didn't solve the problems, our existential problems on time. We propose to come up with city Olympics or city cups to address the world's challenges. So there would be different disciplines like reducing climate change, improving energy efficiency, sustainability and resilience. Be innovative, come up with new organizational and management frameworks, governance frameworks, and it would be a friendly competition where cities and regions around the world would, in parallel, try to come up with innovative solutions to these different problems. And it would involve the media that would mobilize everyone, and politics would also, try to trigger change, collective action. Businesses would be involved, scientific institutions, and most importantly, citizens. And they would try to come up with innovative solutions and would be awarded if they came up with one of the best ideas. We know that competition makes people deliver an extra effort. So it allows us to get more out of us, more ideas, more performance. But this is not just about winning, it's about cooperation too. Those solutions that we would develop would be open source and Creative Commons. So any city could take the solution that fits it from a budgetary and cultural perspective. And businesses, NGOs, citizens, scientists, they could take these solutions, develop them further, connect them with each other. So this is how you can see that the best ideas around the entire planet will be combined with each other to bring us all forward quickly through combinatorial innovation. It's so clear that this would work. We just have to do it. And so it's great that we made a first attempt here and that it already had some global impact. These are some of the disciplines that were chosen, mobility, for example. And the main point really is that we will engage in a new globalization paradigm, which we call localization, which is about thinking global, acting local and diverse, about experimenting, learning from each other, and helping each other. This is how we make progress. And all that was built on open innovation. We have seen hackathons and fab labs and makerspaces in citizen science celebrating a lot of incredible successes in the past. Now we'll take it to the next level, to the city and regional and global level by turning cities into innovation motors and networking cities. And we've collected some experience also here at ETH over time with a lot of international students, bringing, for example, blockchain technology and Internet of Things technology together to come up with new ways of making the world more sustainable. We've seen this fantastic makerspace in Amsterdam, 400 years old building, I believe has been really historical. There people show each other how to do things by themselves with new kinds of instruments as 3D printers. And the principle is really watching how it works, be able to see what are the functional principles and apply them. And in fact, this Fab Lab has invented the Fairphone, which is now available, I think, in the second or third edition even. So the principle is you can open it, you can see how it works, you can repair it, you can upgrade it. And this is how it should work, right? Like Sebastian Trun, I think most things hadn't been invented yet. We could be so innovative if we just had the right framework. There's so many examples. Here, one hacker has actually built his own self-driving cars, or institutions like ETH can build these kind of sustainable vehicles powered by sunshine. And it doesn't always need a big factory in order to come up with ideas and solutions that could change the world, right? Here is another solution that ETH Sciences has been working on that could really make a big difference for 1 billion people in Africa and other places. And the United States even wanted to be a nation of makers. While in Berlin, for example, last year we have seen this Make City Festival. Now imagine that many cities would have such a festival in parallel around the world, and then they would show each other the solutions they came up with and reward the best ones. Then we would already have this Climate City Cup implemented. It's not difficult. We can really do that, right? We've seen that approaches such as OpenStreetMap can be incredibly successful around the entire globe. There's 1 million people feeding in data to keep this updated. It's being used by a lot of people. And why not also transfer that kind of open Wikipedia principle to open source urbanism, right? So come up with new solutions based on openness, collaboration, modularity, granularity, and low-cost integration, and build smart cities that are not just automated by the use of artificial intelligence, but also brings in collective intelligence by the people. That means digital democracy. And yes, I mean, it's really important that we use the knowledge that we've created to assist people to get on another level of expertise and ability to empower people. And of course, in our team, we've also been working on such tools like digital assistants. And so this is one of these tools that Dick has been working on. Dick from India, and he's been evaluating his own life and wanted to change it, and you can see a significant change over here. So it works, and he's the guy on the right, by the way. So we've learned how we can really make change happen, also behavioral change. All of this is about empowering people, using the technology that's now becoming available. So with all these sensors that are in smartphones, but also in Internet of Things sensors that we can cheaply buy, we can produce data for us and everyone in principle, and allow for combinatorial innovation. That means information innovation ecosystems that we could all participate in. I could use that to improve health. Influenza Net is one of our initiatives where people give feedback and get information that will help them to take a decision whether to immunize or not. We've been working on responsible and sustainable consumption, a tool that would find you the products that meet your values, and it turns out people would change their behavior, so you don't have to manipulate and nudge them. They would want to change their life anyway. You just need to give them the tools. And we could actually build tools for disaster response, participatory resilience. So, being in Switzerland, of course, that's today's survival kit, one could say, but tomorrow's survival kit is this, right? So we can use it basically to find responses to disasters such as earthquakes. And smartphones could actually detect earthquakes and warn us and our friends, so we would have a few extra seconds to get into a safe place. And once the disaster has happened, we could use it to map the damage, the broken bridge, the damaged buildings, so everyone would be quickly informed about the situation. But we could also use it in order to create something like a decentralized sharing economy in which we can help each other. So building tools to help ourselves and help each other is the principle. It would have communication based on ad hoc networks, so it doesn't depend on the centralized infrastructure, and it would be, of course, Bitcoin or similar payment system that allows us to keep up economic and social activities even in times of crisis. But how do we get the sustainability problem solved? And for this participatory sustainability that we think would make the difference, we have created a socio-ecological finance system that we call Fin4+. In industrialized countries, every one of us, unfortunately, is producing about 50 tons of waste in a lifetime. And that includes cars and furniture and computers and smartphones, a lot of things that other people could use. And now, we haven't managed to solve this problem because we have supply chains and not a circular economy. Nature and our body work very differently. First of all, they're self-organized. They're also based on multiple real-time feedbacks for different kinds of resources, and this is how nature organizes things. A very different network allowing for self-organization. This is what we need to learn now. And for this, we can use the Internet of Things to map noise and CO2 and temperature and waste of all kinds and good things such as health and natural conditions. And then give feedback in a multi-dimensional way using, for example, blockchain technology to have these different new currencies or incentive systems that would introduce new forces into the market. This is not based on a hell of a lot of regulations. It's based on empowerment to really incentivize socially responsible and environmental friendly production. And these forces would eventually change our economic system, our supply chains, and through co-evolution in such a way that we would get a circular economy within a short period of time. And of course, the sharing economy would be part of that concept of a circular economy. We have a very wasteful society. We can change this. And in order to change this, we have invented this format of Climate City Olympics, or the Climate City Cup, that has now been run thanks to all your fantastic engagement. Thank you so much. There have been a lot of institutions involved already, so you can see them over here, and there were some people who've been very inventive and engaged, came up with new devices in order to measure air quality, for example. You can see them over here, and the City Cup has happened in the past months, as you will learn about in detail pretty soon. And there have been participants in many countries around the world to apply these new success principles for our complex world, which is co-learning, co-creation, coordination, cooperation, and co-evolution. So let's do this together and spread the idea and make sure to change the world together. Winning together, that's our approach. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Helming, for this presentation. I hope you have a clear vision right now in which direction the Climate City Cup is heading. And currently I would like to invite on the stage our star, I can say, Marie-Claire Graff, who came today to share with you her experience, her engagement in taking climate actions. Marie-Claire is a youth advocate engaged in sustainable development, and we're glad to have her here today on the stage. Thank you very much for coming. Do we have maybe a separated microphone?
Separate? Otherwise, I give you.
I think it's coming.
Click. I'm not hard.
I guess I can. Maybe it's
I'm
easier if I can have the mic.
Given that we have many speakers because it might take some time, the whole coordination and the process to give the stage. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for the invitation. I would like to share some personal experience, and I think it's very important to start with the question of why I'm doing this. So when I was 8 years old, my family and I went hiking to the glacier of Morderach, and there are some annual boards where you see the size of the glacier. At the beginning they're very close, and when I get closer to the year when I was born, 1996, you have to walk faster, you have to walk further and further. And when it came to the day, when we were hiking, it was like a mile. So I was wondering, why is this happening? What is going on in this world? And some years later I was diving, and I expected like this fauna and flora, like in the movie, like all this amazing, beautiful nature, and I was shocked to see there was nothing except some trash. So I was wondering, like, what is going on and why is all of this happening? So when we went to school, when I went to school and we went to the library, I was reading all the books about climate and biodiversity and nature, and the parents limited our internet time, but I was using all this time to read the news about climate change, to educate myself, and I was searching again for why is all of this happening. Quickly I understood the science behind climate, and that we are in a very dangerous situation, that the climate is, that the temperature is rising, as you also can see on this scarf here, like this where you're on. Or like also here with like the you see like temperature Switzerland on the map. So I realized that the implications of climate change are very, very serious threat to humanity, but also to our fauna and our animals and like the whole system. So I often compare, as a teacher at secondary school, I often compare the well-balanced system of our Earth with our body, because kids can understand this. And if your boyfriend or girlfriend has already 1 degree fever, and 97% of all scientists agree that it's going up to plus 4 to 7 degrees, and because it's quite sensitive, it will be double as fast as normal, as it's the case for Switzerland because of our Alps. I would be rather panicking and really try for some solutions to solve the fever, but very unfortunately, not all of our world leaders see it like this. But our Earth is too precious to just let it go. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing, and that's also why I don't want to panic. That's why I commit myself to save the Earth. Well, this maybe sounds a little bit naive and visionary, but I think it's very important to have visions and bold goals to go for it. And also people who inspire me along the way are the people who have like these unimaginable goals and visions, and I would love to follow these steps, and that's why I commit myself to save the Earth. I'm very fortunate I'm not alone. There are so many people joining in this fight and standing up and save what I call home and what is our only home. Considering the crisis we are in, I decided not only to change my own personal lifestyle and reduce my own personal footprint with, for example, going vegetarian or vegan, travel, not flying in Europe, and so on, but I commit myself to take unprecedented, bold, impactful, positive, meaningful, risky, and ambitious actions to solve or to contribute to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals in time. There are many success stories, and I would like to share some of them. And I would like to start with one which started at ETH at the University of Zurich. The Sustainability Week. Maybe I've already participated in it. The Sustainability Week, aiming to transform the higher education sector towards more sustainability, started some years ago here in Zurich at the University and ETH. After we got invited by the Swiss television and radio for the daily interview, it spread very quickly all over Switzerland as the Sustainability Week Switzerland. In already half a year, we reached closely to 100% of all students in Switzerland and have now 17 weeks all over Switzerland. But this didn't stay in Switzerland. Very quickly we got an interview at the UN, and also head of states and ministers asked us, how can we be part of the Sustainability Week? So 6 weeks ago, I launched with the President of Switzerland, Welle Maurer, in New York at the headquarters during the General Assembly of the United Nations, the Sustainability Week International, 6 weeks ago, and we are already active in over 40 countries. So we really see there is a lot of energy amongst young people to really drive a lot of changes. Another one are the climate strikes. Last year in November, there was a discussion in the National Parliament about the national implementation of the Paris Agreement. Unfortunately, it was watered down, and at the end, they even rejected all kind of implementation of the Paris Agreement. I was like very frustrated and shocked. 1 week after, I went to the 24th climate conference in Katowice, where I met with Greta, and I was talking to her like how I'm frustrated, that nothing is going on, not even in Switzerland. And then she told us like, why are you not going striking? So we thought like, okay, we can strike. At least we can try. So we started striking at the 14th of December. I was still in Katowice, but some other friends started striking here in Switzerland. We could mobilize for the biggest strike ever happened in Switzerland, 100,000 people at the 28th of September in front of the National Parliament in Switzerland. This is the biggest strike ever happened, same as with the Women's March, so it's also like a very important topic. But yeah, this is not enough, but we keep going. Another success story from Swiss Youth for Climate, which is the National Youth Organization for Ambitious Climate Policies in Switzerland, but also internationally. We were always blaming the government for not doing enough. Some weeks ago, I was appointed by the government of Switzerland to be part of the official delegation for joining the World Climate Conference, which is the first time in history they took a young person in the delegation, and not only for like having nice photo shooting and pictures, but I'm mandated to negotiate on topics related to climate education, which is very perfect because it's like the topic I love to talk about. So, like this is all great, but time is running, and we really have to think about urgency and scale. We have to communicate that we are in urgency, and that if you're not scaling up our actions, we are not going to make it in time. So we have to incorporate like this factor of urgency and scale up our actions to reach the maximum potential. And I do really believe in the power of young people to create these solutions to some of the most pressing issues around the world. But it's not enough if only the young people have to go in the streets. We need everyone. We need people in parliament, we need people in the research, we need people everywhere in all sectors, in companies, to join forces across all nations, all backgrounds, all visions, and all age groups. So, how are we going to achieve this? I do think it comes all down to communication. So we have to be honest with the science and the facts. We have to be respectful to each other and very open-minded in the way how we're communicating. And we have to absolutely keep in mind urgency and scale, otherwise we're not going to make it. This was at the recent press conference at the United Nations in Geneva, where I was invited because I was invited by the Secretary General of the United Nations as one of the 100 most outstanding youth climate activists. Yes, I was talking about urgency and scale, and that the United Nations is not doing enough to address the issue of climate change. Also at conferences, meetings, in negotiations, I'm always highlighting urgency and action and underlining it with some concrete actions and initiatives and policies. Also in media, it's absolutely crucial that we are saying that we are in urgency, that we're not only talking about the climate change, which might come, but we have to really say that there are solutions, and yes, we can do it. As small individual actions are great, but won't be enough. If the big framework is leading us in the wrong direction, I'm meeting quite often with heads of state, other high decision makers, to make sure that their bigger frameworks are in the direction of bold climate action, and that they increase ambition across all policy sectors. But as Switzerland cannot solve the problem alone, and as some of the biggest polluters like the US also have to step in to really make change, I'm also often talking to some world leaders across the oceans, that they are also doing their bit in the sense of the Paris Agreement, common responsibilities, but we have different angles to address it. Furthermore, it's also very key that we are not only talking to some of the big polluters, but also encourage other less influential countries to step up and do their bit and inspire with their own actions. And it's great to see that a lot of countries are very interested in youth development, education for sustainable development, and really listening to young people and taking them seriously. And I think it's also very important that we can inspire them, because we already have some chances, especially in our education system, where we can actually give them something back and help them to educate their generation, not with the failures of the past, but with some forward-looking solution. Well, this all sounds amazing, but sometimes we turn around and don't know how to get out of it. Maybe we are at the ridge and afraid of falling. Maybe the view is not that clear, it's getting quite foggy, and not even with the obstacles we see the horizon where we want to go. Sometimes you're just too tired to keep going, or it's just freezing cold and we just want to get back to our comfortable home. Sometimes it's a race and just small changes from wind or waves can decide over success or failure. Sometimes the goals are very bright, but they're very far away and seem unreachable. Sometimes there is a gap. The gap stands for Gender Action Plan, also something very important when it comes to climate action, but we have to tackle all these gaps. So this is all normal, and this is not a problem to give up. Many people think that because of something like this is happening, they are giving up and not going on. So, as I love trains, I'm not flying in Europe, so I'm always taking a train. This is like somewhere in Romania. I want to give some tips which help me a lot to fulfill my own vision and work on it, and also celebrate some of the successes. And I want to share this. They are like the 5 C's. Maybe you have heard of them. Otherwise, I'm going to share them. And it's the same as we are like when we are entering a train. We know about where we want to go, and we have to start by entering. So the first one is clarity. When we're entering a train, we know where to go. And very often people want to do something, but they don't really know where they want to go. And I think it's very important that we take the time for ourselves to think about where we want to go, what is our vision, what are our dreams. The I Have a Dream speech by Martin Luther King was very powerful because he said where we want to go. And I think we have to take the time to be clear where we want to go. And I'm doing this every year for myself. At the beginning of the year, trying to imagine where I want to go. At the end of the year, most of it doesn't look like what I was imagining in January, but this doesn't matter. But it's very important that we see where we want to go. Because also when you're entering a train, you mostly know the destination where you want to go. So I think this is a good start. The second one is commitment, and I'm very shocked that a lot of world leaders are not committed to change. They are pointing fingers around and showing at all the others, like everyone else could start, but not me. Maybe this comes from my background as a competitive swimmer, but in sports, no one would say, oh, I don't feel like being first today, let someone else do this job. So the second one is commitment. You have to be very committed to win and to succeed. And also in sports, as long as the game is not over, there's always a chance to win. So we have the third one is competences. Obviously, we need a lot of different competences. But very often, the competences which seems least obvious are the key components to succeed. Through formal education, we get a lot of knowledge, and this is very, very important. But nevertheless, we need also some competences which are not taught at the current formal education system. And a lot of people say oh, I'm just not good at public speaking, I'm just not good to do something, right? And then say yeah, we are all not born ready. It's the whole life is a journey, like a train ride where we always learn new things. So it's not that we are a state where we cannot do something, we can always achieve more and learn something. Maybe like something from my personal side. In kindergarten, I read like the report where it was written that Marie-Claire is very shy, she's not interacting with other people, and she's not often talking. So you can learn it. The fourth one is like courageous. In a very volatile, uncertain, complex world, where we tend to be even more afraid of taking risks and step outside of our comfort zone, because we are afraid of failing and sometimes we are even afraid of succeeding, it's very, very important that we show our emotions and that we live our passion and just do what we think is right. Because if we are afraid of even starting something and we don't have the courage of starting something, we can never achieve our own goals. It sounds maybe very easy, but a lot of people actually don't have the courage at the moment to do what they would like to do because they're afraid of people blaming them. So I think this is a very, very important one. Maybe again back to my example of that I was not interacting with a lot of people. With public speaking, it takes courage in the beginning to do it, right? Also speaking in front of head of states, having meetings with very important decision makers, but we can learn it, and I think this is a very important message, that we are not born ready, but that we can always learn it, and that we can always, seek for more courage. And the last one is also very important, is the community. It's always, I feel it's always a little bit like the forgotten ingredient at the end, that we need a very strong community which is lifting us up, which is supporting us if we fail, which is listening to our crazy ideas without blaming. It's a community which is not jealous, but is encouraging us to continue. So I think it's very important to think about this community, which is supporting you, your vision, your ideas. And so I personally surround myself with different communities, with different competences, different strengths, and it's just wonderful what can grow out of these communities. So there is nothing wrong with asking for support in a group, because you know that this group is supporting you whatever it takes. Yeah, so as Les Brown, he's like a motivational speaker, as is always saying, shooting for the moon, because if you're failing, you end up in the stars. And I think these 5 ingredients, which I just told you, are very, very important to achieve your own vision. And maybe you don't get a Nobel Prize with it, but you can be the best version of yourself, and you can lead by example, and you can show your commitment, competences, courage, and your community. And I personally learned so much, and it's a wonderful journey, and I would like to share this with as many as possible, that they can also find their own journey and achieve your own vision. And if you can take these 5 key messages, these 5 C's home, I achieved my personal goal for this session today. But very often, going back home, you will find excuses why you're not doing it, why you don't have the time, or maybe someone is like not listening to you. So mostly it's us limiting ourselves. It's not the surrounding. Of course there are a lot of obstacles, but mostly it's us don't believe in ourselves, setting perceived boundaries, and we are focusing very often in the negative of us, the negative of the world. We are sometimes even saying to ourselves, like, why did we not do it like this? Instead of using this time for positive energy within ourselves. So very often we desperately wait for others to support us to achieve our own goals, while not just standing up and do it ourselves. I know this is a hard first step, but it's absolutely worth taking. And a very interesting fact, so when we talk to ourselves, just like maybe you think about it, we talk on an average speed of 4,000 words per minute. This is like very fast, and mostly we don't even say, like when we speak to ourselves in our mind, not only in full sentence, but just some words, because we know how we are talking to ourselves. So imagine you use all these 4,000 words per minute for positive action, what you can do and how you can change the world, instead of maybe thinking, oh, do I look good enough? Was this good enough? Why didn't he reply? Why is this going wrong? So if we use these words words, and if we use our own communication in a positive way, I do believe that all of us can change a lot. It took very long for me to understand this, but when I understood, actually it takes a transition time, but then it goes very fast, because it's just a new normal and it's just your new behavior. Behavior change are always complicated, but when you're in it, and you don't get out of it anymore, and it's a very beautiful state. So I'm absolutely convinced that you can all be champions of the earth, and yeah, because the world depends on you, depends on inspiring champions like you. Yeah, my name is Marie-Claire, and I thank you for your attention.
Hello. Great, thank you. Thank you very much, Marie-Claire, for your courage, for commitment, for everything you're doing. I think it's not only about inspiration, but it's also about taking some recommendations and apply them today. So this is the great example. Thank you very much.
Good. Maybe if you want to come back quickly, we might have time. I guess there is questions from the audience. Maybe somebody would like to ask something about your experiences. We start in the back and then with Sandra. Can you have a handful of mic quickly for the questions, please?
Hello, my name is Sandra, and I was just like looking at this photo, and I've been in contact with Callum too. So this was an award ceremony, but you refused to get the award. Basically, you took the award and said, "Well, we keep it for you. You and we give it back to you." Can you tell me a little bit about the background and the reasoning for this?
So this is at the UNEP, the UN Environment Program. They always give some awards, and we got the award and refused it because we say awards is something where we celebrate, but we cannot really celebrate any achievements yet because the CO2 is still rising. We are not over climate catastrophe. We don't even see it on the horizon that we are making it. So we think to give an award to young people because they are standing up is not the right thing, because you just satisfy your own failures and inactions. So we refuse to take the award, but we are holding it, so it's actually in my room, and we're holding it to give it back when the United Nations, as the multilateral place where we believe that this action will be taken, we are giving it back as soon as the CO2 is going down, and we are going to achieve the Paris Agreement.
And Annabelle?
My question is sort of related. I'm happy about that. I understand you have a lot of experience and you've been talking to a lot of people, and that's amazing. I'm just wondering whether a worst case scenario ever came up, like a damage control plan that people are talking about.
You mean about like the climate? Okay. Well, there is a very shocking report from some scientists in Australia. It's called the climate breakdown. And they have some scenarios that in the second half of the century, humanity will be decreased to half a billion people or something like this. That there will be like huge wars and mass extinction is going on around like species. So it sounds like a horror movie, and I guess there are a lot of very, very shocking reports. And maybe to add on this, the IPCC report, like from where they combine all the science around the world on climate, they are mostly rather conservative. So they have like they talked about the melting of the Arctic, of like the very big ice fields, and they were already melting this summer, and they didn't actually put it in the report because they thought this is not going to happen in this century. So it's actually quite bad, yes.
One more question there.
Hello, my name is Tobisin. Thank you very much for your testimony. coming from the corporate world today, I saw in your testimony many pictures from international cooperation and organizations, and I really do believe in cooperation between public and private area. And maybe among all the decision makers that you met, sorry, among the, let's say, CEOs, if you met some, according to you, what is the major thing that avoids large cooperation to actually take the green path, let's say?
Yeah, they were not in the slides here, but I meet very often with like CEOs from very big companies. But very often they don't understand the urgency we're in and the scale of action you have to take. Maybe a small example, I was talking to the CEO of Starbucks a couple of months ago, and then he was telling me like how amazing it is that they run all their shops now with like renewable energy, and that they will actually ditch like the straws. But what is about ditching straws if your cups are still made out of plastic? I mean, like, this is not the action we need, and very often, or also like in the finance sector, they tell me like how amazing they are if they have like this green bonds now, which is like 0.1% of their whole portfolio, which is going to green investments. And I think they don't understand that we have to shift everything possible in the right direction. It's not enough to have like 0.1% of green bonds, but we need like 100% of green bonds. But some of them are also limited by the economic system they are in. So especially if they're like shareholder companies, it's very hard to, yeah, because you're driven by the shareholders. It's very hard to say like, oh, we don't want to grow anymore, or we want to invest more in a sustainable transition rather than just go for the money.
You work both, you know, in bottom-up activities, protest groups, communities, and at the same time you also talk to the highest spheres of political influence. How does this go together for you, or when asked differently, when is the right time to protest and when is the right time to talk to the decision makers?
Actually, very often, just right after the protest, we go to talk to high decision makers, and I think it needs both. We are not going to achieve our goals in time if there's only protests or only like talking to a high decision maker. We need this bottom-up approach, but it's very important that we also talk to the decision makers, because very often they don't really understand us and what is going on. So I think just because time is so pressing and the issue is so urgent, we have to do both at the same time, and we cannot either or wait.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we have one more question here, and then we have to move on to the next.
I will also stay here for the
But Mark, Fanny and then Mark. Okay, two quick questions.
You talked to lots of decision makers, but you also emphasized how important it is to talk to the citizens and to also support them. And in my everyday experience, there's a lot of people of all ages who support this movement, but there's also people who say, I just don't believe in climate change, and people have said that 100 years, and I don't think it's happening. What is your response to that? How can you kind of convince these people?
As I'm very often in the media, like always I get like some emails and even letters and saying like, oh, you're not right because I don't believe in it. I don't have the time to talk to people who don't believe in climate, because climate change and the crisis is a fact, and if someone doesn't believe in it, he's also not believing if you're showing them the right numbers. So if someone talks about beliefs, then I think it's a very lost case, and you shouldn't waste time to talk to these people. I'm very fortunate also for the transition, we don't need everyone on board. We don't even need half the people on board. There are like a lot of studies that we need 3.5% of people on board committed to change. So if there are people who don't believe in the science, then just let them do it.
Yeah, so I'm trying to make a quick question. You're saying that you're like in this bottom-up movement, like you're protesting, and you're also talking with decision makers, and you are saying like that decision makers, they are kind of not understanding the problem. But do you also meet, because like I have the feeling that most people are actually aware that climate change is happening and they're trying to do something. So do you also meet people like in the higher levels, like as you say, who are really against, or like a factor against this movement, or do you have any experience in this regard? So like who do you meet who's really an opponent in this discussion, so that climate change, like these actions are not happening?
well, I bumped into Mr. Trump. I don't think he is like on our side, but I was not talking to him. I would say mostly decision makers they are aware what is happening. They know that they have to do something, but it's about like pointing fingers at each other. No one wants to start boldly. So the least developed countries show like, oh yeah, you from the global north have to start. Others say like, yeah, you have like you should start. So I would not. They are all aware, I would say, or most of them are aware, but it's refusing to take responsibility and start boldly and yeah, take the urgent action, because at the end everyone has to change. So it doesn't matter who is going to start, because when everyone has to change, yeah, you can start or you can be second, it doesn't really matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marie-Claire, for your bold fight for more sustainability and for your support for the Climate City Cup. As you might already have learned, we plan to have the Climate City Cup every 2 years from now, so we would be really happy to have you as something like an ambassador for the Climate City Cup in the future. And thank you for being here and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you.
And we also have a certificate to use as the first prize. It's the Distinguished Climate City Cup Award. But because you're on our side, so we would like to provide you with this, and it's very symbolic. But thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
And you can certainly give it back to us once we achieve the goals of the Climate City Cup.
No, I'm not giving it back. You're already fighting very hard to make a real change happen. So.
Great, thank you so much. So you're going to stay with us
Yes.
for lunch.
Yes.
Great. So then if there are any other questions that arise, you can approach Marie-Claire directly and just learn more about her journey.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And with this, we would actually say we would want to run a video that concludes the first Climate City Cup. It has been running for 4 months now. We have people being active in many different areas of the world. We had lots of data flowing in and coming together to help us democratize the way we measure our environment and to give the people the possibility to measure themselves and actually see what's happening and also discuss new strategies together. But let us see this video and then we will start with some more data and a few rankings. quickly go through how we kind of calculated the numbers and what does that mean in terms of rankings. So first of all, we would like to go back a little bit about and talk about the initial discussions we had. We said we want people living in different cities around the world to individually measure and contribute things, especially in the disciplines of mobility and energy, but also with respect to food waste, anti-food waste, and things like light compensations and many more. It was quite difficult for all disciplines to implement this goal to have people measuring things directly. So we were relying on some partners, especially for the first edition of the Climate City Cup. And in the end, we could not have enough data points in all disciplines to create rankings out of it, but we will go through each of the disciplines quickly and see where we could create rankings and what they're based on. The initial idea was also to kind of calculate deltas, so what's the difference between the first months of the Climate City Cup and the following months, so we could see whether there is a change. And you saw with the mobility rankings that we had here, there was a change actually as compared to the first months. In almost all cities there was a higher share of commuting tracks that were reported that were actually sustainable. But what does that mean? Let's maybe quickly go through the different disciplines and the data points we have. So first of all, energy. Here we got the data set from EWZ, that's the public energy provider in Zurich, with 11,523 data points. So what they gave us is like, for the whole period of the Climate City Cup, every 15 minutes they were looking at how much energy was consumed on a city level. It's electricity, sorry, not energy in total, but electricity. And we had more than 20 contributions from individuals who actually took the job to go down in their basements, in their cellars, and kind of read their meters once in a while and just support us with having individualized measurements. Nevertheless, as we only have data from one city in this discipline, which is Zurich, we cannot kind of create a ranking out of it. But we would anyway like to show you how the energy consumption in Zurich has evolved over the period of the Climate City Cup. So as you can see here, this is the weekly consumption. We kind of built an average, and usually it's around somewhere like 52 million kilowatt hours. It's like 52,000 megawatt hours for Zurich. And you see there is some peaks and some drops. Clearly, this has nothing to do with the Climate City Cup because we're just not big enough to change things there. So this is just like natural fluctuations in the use of energy. So we have here in July, when we have like a very low consumption, this is usually the time where people are on summer holidays, right? So we actually need less energy in the city, people don't go to work, and we see then it's going up towards the end of the year, towards November. This is clearly because it's getting colder, and so people have to are using more electricity in that time. And when you look at this data in a more granular way, you see that there is even fluctuation within a week. So usually on the weekends, energy consumption drops quite dramatically. That means that it is clear that the highest part of the consumption actually comes from industry and less from households. So it makes a big difference. If people are working, we just use more electricity, right? So for us, these are all interesting things to see, and also for the way forward in the future. And this helps us tremendously to see like who should we get on board. The goal or the idea for the future is that we work with a lot of employers in the different cities. For example, also the public employers like the city itself, and others that run different activities during the Climate City Cup, and we try to just slightly influence the data that we can show afterwards. So imagine one day everybody in Zurich is telling their people that in the offices, whenever you leave your office, you cannot turn off the light. Whenever you don't use your laptop, close it. Whenever you don't use your screen, just really tear it out or plug it out or whatever. So that we want to see how can we in the end have an effect on this data here. And then in the future, clearly the goal is also to have more direct measurements coming from smart meters, for example, or new tools that we have to measure energy consumption. Next discipline was flight compensations. Here we worked with our partner MyClimate. We tried to motivate as many people as we could to compensate their flights during the Climate City Cup, but surely also after the Climate City Cup. And during the